Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. Well, this morning in Genesis, we read that Jacob is taking his family and all of his possessions back to the land of his father after 20 years working away for his uncle. At night, while Jacob is alone, God chose him, and the two of them wrestle until daybreak. Neither of them can get the upper hand. Even after God knocks Jacob's hip out of the socket, Jacob refuses to let God go until he blesses Jacob. So God gives Jacob a new name. From now on, instead of being known as Jacob, the one who supplants, he will be known as Yisra-El, the one who struggles with God. After today's story, Jacob's limp and his new name become monuments to that time that Jacob struggled with God and somehow lived to tell about it. Today, as part of our summer of Thanksgiving, we celebrate here at St. Peter's the rich legacy that we've been given as people of this parish and children of God. One particular way that this parish has chosen to honor its heritage is through the St. Peter's Perpetual Memorial. Each of you should receive a copy of it this morning when you came into church. The Perpetual Memorial is part yearbook, part Hall of Fame. In it, parishioners have honored their family, friends, beloved pets, and significant life events that have made an impact on their lives. In this book, we are reminded of the great cloud of witnesses who are counting on us and praying for us in heaven and on earth. By this book, the light of those people's example will continue to shine on us and on generations yet to come. When I see this book, I think of people like Edie McCormick, for instance. Now, if you want to look at these people as I'm talking, I encourage you to do that. They're all pictured on page 21. One Wednesday night, shortly after Reverend Sarah arrived at St. Peter's, she asked us to go around in a circle and tell our names and which animals we would most like to be. When it was Edie's turn, she said, "I'm Edie McCormick, and I'd like to be an elephant because elephants are monogamous." Edie once called a fellow parishioner when she was locked out of her apartment, and she had this parishioner work for an hour on her break in, only to discover when her neighbor arrived that this was in fact her neighbor's apartment, and her door had been unlocked all along. Sometimes Edie's clocks would stop, and she would phone at odd hours, like the time that she called me at 5 a.m. on Christmas morning to ask for a ride to Alabama. Sometimes her phone rang during church, and at least one time I remember she answered it. But Edie was here every time the doors were open. Edie was the very first person at St. Peter's ever to speak to Jacob and me and to invite us to coffee. Edie baked something for every parish meal and every funeral there because hospitality was important to her. Edie was an inspiration. Then I think of P.J. Kiefer. Now, P.J. had a stroke shortly before Jacob and I started attending here. But although his short-term memory was never the same and he lived in assisted living for the rest of his life, P.J. learned to walk again. In a time that St. Peter still celebrated the Eucharist every day, P.J. never missed that Eucharist. He also, on his own time, prayed the daily office every day, using a book of common prayer that he had tied to his clothing by a string so that he wouldn't forget where to go. P.J. died in his sleep the morning that Jacob and I were married. But P.J.'s faith and that hobbled gait that he had, that he shared in common with Jacob in today's reading, were an inspiration to me. I think of Robert Steele, who, despite having mental and psychiatric ailments, attended church here several times a week. Robert often wore an immaculate white suit on top of a Superman t-shirt. According to Father Dunkerley, 2 records ago now, the first time Robert worshipped here, he walked through the doors of the nave there, dipped his fingers in the font, crossed his rear end, and let out a loud "woo!" But you know what? When Reverend Sarah first moved into her office here at the church, Robert held the door for her. He called everyone that he met honey, regardless of gender. During the words of institution at the Eucharist, I remember he would hold a little Aladdin's lamp aloft and wave his other hand Pentecostal style. The sacrament was profoundly meaningful and holy to him. When Robert died of lung cancer a few years ago, none of his family members could be found. But St. Peter's threw him a dandy funeral and sent him off in style. During his lifetime, Robert could never be certain of a permanent home, but he has one now. His ashes rest safely with several others under the altar of St. Peter's. Robert, and the way that this parish embraced Robert, are an inspiration. I think of Don and Joanna Gansky, parishioners here for 4 decades. At some time or other, I think Joanna served on just about every committee this parish and the dioceses had. And I was fortunate to serve with her on the stewardship team, where in fact she was instrumental in creating the Perpetual Memorial Program to begin with. I'll never forget a stewardship meeting in 2011 when Joanna told all of us that she had been diagnosed with stage 4 lung cancer. We were all shocked and speechless. But literally, as soon as she told us, she pulled out her checkbook and wrote a check so that she could put her husband Don in the Perpetual Memorial. It was important to her to know that no matter what happened, neither Don nor the people of St. Peter's would ever doubt what he had meant to her. So in this book, you can still read her tribute message that reads simply, "Thank you to an amazing man." Joanna didn't live to see the Perpetual Memorial come to fruition, but she is honored here for an inspiration forever. Of course, those of us who've been around know that Don's gone now too. Last fall, I drove out to his house to visit with him and to pick up his pledge card because he'd been ill and unable to bring it to church himself. Just as he and Joanna had done every year, Don increased his pledge again, even as he faced surgeries and significant health problems, even as St. Peter's was undergoing a season of considerable change and uncertainty. I thanked Don for his pledge, which I saw as a sign of his faith in God and his confidence in the parish's future. Don told me, "Hey, kid, Joanna and I are lucky. I'll never be rich, but I'll never be hungry, and I got everything I need. I'm able to do it, and I'm glad." Don Gadsby was an inspiration. I think of the faith and generosity of my grandparents, Chester and Gussie Harris, and Doc and Dorothy Inbook, all of whom are on every book. Years before my grandpa Harris started going to church was important enough to Grandma that she told him no matter what he did with his paycheck, a tenth of her paycheck was going to the Lord. When Grandma and Grandpa Inbook started their landscaping business, they promised God 2 things. They'd never be open on Sundays, and they'd always give God a tenth of everything that they made. And they honored those promises. Later in life, Grandpa Inbook taught me a lot about dignity in the face of adversity. Just as Jacob in our reading wrestled with God, Grandpa Inbook wrestled with cancer for 6 years through radiation, chemotherapy, and 4 surgeries, the last of which left him in a coma for a month with a massive facial disfigurement that he would bear through the rest of his life. But even when he could no longer taste his food, he still ate with gusto because he would say, "I remember what it used to taste like." Though one side of his face was numb and droopy, he would just grab a bib and a little mirror to help guide his food to his mouth, and he'd Grandma would head to the restaurant. The last week of his life, he slipped from consciousness, and my mom and I would turn him every few hours, clean his bandages, and change his sheets, and wipe his brow with a cool washcloth. In that last week, he taught me a lot about the sanctity and the holiness of human life, as I realized that that gaunt, naked, 70-pound man who was being devoured by disease was somehow still my grandpa, still a human being, breathed into by the very breath of God. My grandparents were an inspiration. You know, there are many, many precious people honored in this book. Jay Price, who for more than 5 decades shepherded St. Peter's finances through good years and bad. Jay, I want to ask you whether we had more good or bad. Jack Avery, who served 7 years on the vestry, somehow let me tell about it. Deacon Nancy, who has been honored for her years of service in ordained ministry, and on it goes. The people in this book represent a vast treasure. And the book itself is a treasure map that, if we will let it, will lead us to lives of worthiness and holiness. Now, we all know many people who are not in this book, who nevertheless have left an impact on our lives, and we give thanks for them this morning as well. Now, ordinarily, a minimum donation is required to name an endowment after someone in the perpetual memorial. But today, as we thank God for Christian legacy during the summer of Thanksgiving, there is no minimum donation. So I encourage you, Carpe Diem sees today. Fill out the form that was in your bulletin this morning and make a donation of any size to honor someone who's made a lasting impact in your life. Then drop it in the offering plate when it goes by. And we'll place those forms on the altar, and all of us united together will give thanks to God for those lives who changed us for the better. You and I have so many people to be thankful for. Church tradition teaches us that the Church Universal, the whole communion of saints in which we profess our belief in the Apostles' Creed, is divided into two groups. Now, those who believe in purgatory would say there are three groups, but I'm afraid we're going to have to visit across the street and we're hearing more about that. The first group, consisting of those of us who are still alive on earth, still wrestling with God and humans and all that life throws our way, is known as the church militant, the church still fighting. But those who have overcome, who have died and gone on to attain the beatific vision of God in all His fullness, are known as the church triumphant. Think about it. These saints of God whose legacy we're talking about this morning are not dead. They're alive and well in the great cloud of witnesses, expecting great things from you and me, interceding for us unceasingly before the throne of God. We believe that they wait for us each week at this table. They wait for us here this morning. So think about that as we move into the great Thanksgiving. We dine this morning not only with eternal God and with one another, but we dine with Edie and PJ and Robert and Don and Joanna, grandmas, mothers, fathers, brothers, sisters, partners, and friends in the church triumphant. Heroes, every one of them. We dined with Jacob, who was called Israel. We dined with all of us who have striven with God and with man and have prevailed. And thank God for them all forever.